Now, I don't have a huge amount of open source projects up there because I never finish anything. I'll be honest. I've got two major projects that I've worked on. One which was a binding to a Python binding to a video library, which is actually the one I'm most proud of. It has actually been taken by at least 3 different groups in different directions. It's actually being used in vision research at MIT. There is a group, I think one of the lead developers out of Israel, who has taken it and released it and converted my little DVD-based project that I was working on into a complete multimedia library in Python. It's great to see that. I don't use it. I've never even downloaded the new copy of it. But because I open sourced it, it can go there, and I saved them the months that I spent researching and building that from the ground up. I just saved them that time. I saved them the effort of how to design it, and they were able to move forward from that. The other project up there, the pi-IFP, they don't make those pieces of hardware anymore, so no one cares. But it's still out there. It is actually included in the base Fedora Linux install. Quite proud of that one as well. And this presentation. Like I said, you can open source anything you want. I have decided that I'm going to open source this presentation. Anyone can take it, can modify it, can use it if they want. And I didn't put it under the GPL, I didn't put it under the DSP license. I put it under a documentation license. The Creative Commons Share and Share Alike license, which basically says, if you take this and use it, please share it. Okay? Anybody have any questions?
Do you know if you release something and you forget to put a license with it, is there like a default copyright license that it will fall under? You know?
It is copyrighted by the fact that you created it. If you want to apply a different license to it, you have to state your copyright. But the very fact that you created it means that under US law you have a copyright. It is not as enforceable as if you stated that it's copyright, or there's actually a registration that you can do that gives you increased powers to go after people violating your copyright. That's why you'll see registered copyrights on movies and books and things like that, because they've registered it with US copyright law to prove that they created it so that it has more weight in court.
What about international China violating copyright laws, etc.?
You have the legal protection that anyone does of copyright violation. If you want to pursue it, there have been successful copyright suits brought in a number of different countries. US and Germany most commonly I've seen. If you're going to go international, you're really going to be relying on the foreign government to help you, because you're going to be bringing the suit under foreign laws. I'm not a lawyer. I've been out of the United States one day in my entire life. I'm not a good expert on international law. Anybody else?
Yeah, if you take a project and you put your license on it, right? Is that all you have to do to say that you are using that license?
Yeah, pretty much.
Associate. Now, let's say somebody takes a copy of your project and they take the license off, put a different license on it, and distribute it.
They have violated your copyright.
Yeah, but how do you know? Because they
That's
tied
the
it
hard
together
part.
the same way that you did, right? When you originally distributed it.
But they are not the original author, so therefore they have no rights to do that. Yes, unfortunately at that stage you are looking at legal recourse. You can sue them. If you find
So,
them,
yeah, so
that's
there's
the
no
hard
way to
part.
know that they did that. That's what I'm getting.
Actually, there's a lot of ways to know. There are actually a lot of people who do that. There is a project called BusyBox, which is a tiny little shell replacement. It's used on a large number of embedded systems. In fact, you'll find it on a lot of phones nowadays. And it seems to be everybody's target for violating the license on it. And it's very permissive license. I don't know which one it's under. But I have seen probably a dozen suits over improper use of the BusyBox project. But, how do they find it out? They go and look at it and say, hey, this looks a lot like what I wrote. And, you can do things like run strings on it to get strings, which will bring out things like what libraries use, the error strings you've got. If I write a project and you write a project, even if they do substantially the same thing, we're not going to write identical error messages.
Not too much.
No. So, those are ways that you can find out about it. You then, most of the time, if you go and talk to the people distributing this, routers are another very common place that you'll find license violations. Specifically, you'll usually find that they're not distributing the source code as required by the GPL license, if they're Linux-based. Most of the time, if you go to them and say, hey, I see that you're using open source under this license, you're violating it in this way, could you please come into compliance with it? A lot of times the companies are like, oh, we're sorry, we didn't realize. We'll release the source code. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes people still don't. I think in America you have to have a stake to make the suit. In other words, I cannot sue Linksys on behalf of Linux for a Linux copyright violation. That is not true in all countries in the world. I know Germany specifically. There's actually a cottage industry of lawyers who sue on behalf of other people because they don't have to share the settlement with the original author. And laws are strange. Any other questions?
Do you know what hardware license the Arduino uses, by any chance?
I believe that I want to say it's a Creative Commons license, but I'm not entirely sure. Actually, I think it has it on the back if you flip it over and look at the board. At least I do believe mine does, whatever model that is. It's been a while since I pulled it out. It's pretty easy to find out.
Okay.
Should have thought of that. I didn't think to go pull that out.
Are you going to put this on the web?
If you want, I don't actually currently have websites available. If anybody has a thumb drive, I'm more than happy to give it to them right now, but I will try to get it up on the web somewhere in the fairly near future. A couple things that I kind of skimmed over there. Just because I've open sourced it doesn't necessarily mean I have to distribute it, but it's kind of pointless not to. Another thing that I did want to bring up that I kind of forgot, sorry, is that if you open source something and start distributing it, you cannot pull those copies back. I can say that I've open sourced this, but I've made a new version, I've made changes to it, and I no longer want this new version to be open source. I can do that, but I can't say, you can no longer distribute the one I gave you under this license. You cannot retroactively remove the license. So that's something to think about.
With some of these licenses that require you to release the source, are there rules about how you need to release the source?
That is actually a point of contention a lot of times among commercial vendors who use open source in their projects. I was reading one just recently where HTC, manufacturer of a lot of Android-based phones, says that, oh, we'll release the source from 90 to 120 days after the hardware goes live. I don't know where they get those numbers. That's not anywhere in the, but they state that satisfies the license. How do you distribute it? You have to make it available to anyone that you give the project to. So if I give you all an open source project, a compiled binary open source project, you can come to me and say, give me the source code, and I have to comply. Now, if I give Robert a copy of my open source project, and he gives it to Rich, Rich can't come to me and say, give me the source code. I would, but Robert is on the hook to provide that source code if requested, because he's the one who further distributed it. Anything else?
Is there any licensing as far as, since there is some noted difference between Europe and their patent and copyright laws as far as when you pick a license, that if you want collaboration, that's something how what works best for collaboration there?
Remember that open source licenses are copyright licenses. Copyrights and patents are two separate things. So most open source licenses do not directly address patents. What they do tend to address, like I mentioned in the Apache license, is they address patent suits. They're basically saying, if you use a patent to attack me or my users, then I will nullify your license. But that's really all they can do. They can't. Open source licenses, as being copyright licenses, cannot say directly, you can't patent this. They can't even necessarily say that this isn't patented. Software patents are a totally different topic that I could spend another hour or two ranting about, but they are different topics, so don't want to go too deep into it today. Anything else?